We weren't allowed to go outside. We couldn't exercise. We were stuck in rooms all day, just getting fed like cattle. It has nothing to do with the food. It's all a mental disorder. We earned a phone call with our family for 10 minutes at night if we ate all of our food. If you can't eat donuts and cakes and be okay with that and include everything in your diet, then you're not fully healed.
Welcome, Marianne. Thank you for doing this. You're over there in South Carolina, and you've got it sounds like a pretty interesting story to share. So I'll let you go ahead and just maybe introduce yourself, tell us a little about your background, and then kind of go ahead and get into it if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, and I was also honored to meet you at Meatstock and looking forward to that again next year.
Yeah,
But
Scott puts on a good event. That's a good event, and
yeah,
I
it was
thought I think
fantastic.
for
It was
those
my
people
first
that are
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, it was my second time. So I think for those people that are considering it, if it hasn't sold out already, and it's a good time, it's a good event for sure. But
Well, I'm Marianne, and I've been carnivore since about 2018. And I've had some ups and downs along the way, but overall, carnivore has helped me recover from anorexia and a series of bacterial infections and amputations. And I think right now I'm the happiest and healthiest and strongest I've ever been because of, well, I always say Christ and carnivore. So converting to Christianity, accepting Jesus as my savior, and then also nourishing my body with meat and eggs.
it sounds like a pretty good combination for a lot of people would agree with that. So anorexia, horrible disease for those people that, that are sort of just remotely familiar with it. Well, that's people that don't eat enough and they get skinny and stuff, but it kills a lot of women. It really does. I mean, it is a tragic, one of the worst eating disorders you can have. And a lot of women don't survive it and they never recover from that. And it's something, and I've talked to a number of mostly women, quite honest. You see it more in women than men, but that have actually had similar, I haven't heard your story yet, but I mean, I assume some similar issues. And carnivore was helpful. And there's actually, as you may know, there's a scientific paper out of case series that was published a couple of years ago about this. And so, how did it happen? What was the story like? Did it start as a kid, or what was it? What was the deal on this?
Yeah, my eating disorder started at about age 13. I felt very over controlled by my parents and my living situation. And so, my food intake was the one thing I felt like I had control over. And, it really did almost kill me because it was something I've struggled with over the years, ups and downs, until about 2 or 3 years ago. But my parents sent me to residential eating disorder treatment facilities where they said, oh, it's all in your head. It has nothing to do with the food. It's all a mental disorder. So we're just going to stuff you with, standard American diet food and not worry about the food part, but let's focus on the therapy. And, I did receive some good therapy while I was in those treatment centers, but the way they approached the nutrition leaves much to be desired, unfortunately. And so they're not open at all to a low carb, high fat diet, let alone carnivore. And they, constantly barraged me with, everything, all foods fit and everything in moderation. And if you can't eat this meal full of maybe it was like Chinese takeout one day. So they would time us and watch us eat and then put us in a room and ask us if we felt anxious. And I'm over here going, well, you don't let us go outside and see the sun. We weren't allowed to go outside. We couldn't exercise. We were stuck in rooms all day, just getting fed like cattle. And then you ask me if I'm anxious and having problems. Well, yeah, a little bit.
So the treat. So we're going to force feed you junk food, shield you from the sun, and kind of just,
It was
I don't know.
awful. I mean,
Yeah.
we were timed at all of our 6 meals a day. We were timed. We couldn't use knives and napkins. We had to roll up our sleeves. It was like prison, basically. And then we earned a phone call with our family for 10 minutes at night if we ate all of our food during the day. So it was a traumatic experience and something I wouldn't wish on anybody.
Yeah. Well, how, just from the standpoint of the disease itself, how did it affect you? I mean, obviously, you probably lost a lot of weight. I mean, how light? I mean, because you always hear people they get down to 70 pounds or so. How light did you get, and how bad did it get for you at its worst?
Yeah, I'm about 5'5", and my lowest weight was in the mid 70s, I would
Okay.
say.
Yeah. So clearly,
So pretty serious there. And but I with carnivore, like I was saying, I finally have this freedom to where I feel, it's something in my brain switched. So growing up, actually, my dad is a cardiologist, and we weren't allowed to eat red meat because he bought into the whole, high cholesterol myth of heart disease. And, he bought into all of the American Heart Association stuff and the mad cow disease and everything. So I didn't have my first steak until I was like in my mid 20s. And I've told people it was like my brain basically like had an orgasm and like woke up. like, um, and I found myself just craving that meat, wanting to eat that fat. And, I've never looked back, but it was just, my body was missing something when I was growing up. And now I'm
so,
able to nourish properly, and it's amazing.
so you grew up in a household. Dad's cardiologist. Red meat. He's like most of us were brainwashed. Red meat is bad. Saturated fat is awful. And you've got that. First of all, which I think is a problem just for the general population, and then obviously afflicted with a severe eating disorder, and inpatient. I don't know how many times. Did you go in several times, or was it one time, or how many times you?
Twice,
Twice in
twice.
there. Yeah, probably not fun experiences. I've taught, like I said, I've interviewed a number of gals with anorexia, and almost universally it was the same experience. You're locked in a almost like a prison, and you're force fed junk food, and it's just like that. How does that if we look at illness like, hey, illness is a problem and nutrition can help. Well, feeding people bad nutrition doesn't seem to improve anything. Probably makes it worse in many cases. Um, so you'd mentioned obviously bacterial infections, sepsis, amputations. I don't know if you lost, I don't know if you lost toes or something like that. But what was going on there? What was the story on that? Hey, folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. Hey, if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic disease and you're tired of just managing symptoms with potions, pills, and procedures, I want you to check out Revero.com. Our team of dedicated professionals is committed to tackling the root cause of your issue and finally getting you healthy. Hurry up, though. Our spaces are filling up very quickly.
Yeah, so back in November of 2022, I was living with my now ex-husband in Florida, in Tampa, and the doctors now say that the bacterial infection I had was caused from a hot tub at a gym. So, Florida, they always they always joke in Florida, if you get in the water, there's an alligator or bacteria, apparently. So, bacteria entered a little cut in my leg, and I went septic. And because I was at that time still struggling with anorexia, my body didn't have enough nutrition to really fight things off. So I ended up having a heart attack. My kidneys shut down completely. I was on dialysis 24/7. I was on a ventilating machine. So the septic infection was deadly serious. And at the time, the doctors wanted to cut off both of my legs back in 2022 to amputate both legs. But they instead tried some skin graft surgery to try to save what they could. I did lose two fingers, my two fingers here on my left hand in the middle, and I lost a chunk of my left foot. So I've only got two toes on my left foot because of that. Then, so when I met you at Meatstock, I had already been through all those amputations, and I had the skin graft surgery. So I was still walking around on, 1.5 feet. But at the end of Meatstock, one of my skin grafts opened up and got infected, and that turned into osteomyelitis.
Mm.
And so I had to have emergency surgery to amputate my right leg below the knee. So currently, I am missing my right leg below the knee. I've only got two toes on my left foot, and I've only got eight fingers, but I'm making it happen.
Well, I mean, yeah, goodness. So that's obviously challenges with that, but So back, the anorexia plagued you for how many years? How did you basically cure that, if you want, if we can call it cure? What was it? What was the deal on that?
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is the conventional wisdom says there's no such thing as a cure for anorexia, which I'm still struggling whether or not I believe that. But as far as I'm concerned, I am in remission right now, and I'm being as vigilant as possible to make sure that, of course, I never go back to that place again. But age 13 is when it is the onset for me. And then I would say I've been in recovery about 2 years, fully, completely in recovery. Even though I've been carnivore for since 2018, early on, I was not eating enough. I was completely under eating. A lot of people, especially women, make that mistake when they go carnivore, they under eat. And it essentially caused a relapse in the anorexia. I was, worrying so much about portion control and just control of the food in general. When my mind switched, and I really do think that my mind switched because of accepting Christ as my Savior and understanding that I'm a valuable human being because He created me. So I need to nourish my body. And so once that switch flipped, and I began to just eat as much as my body was asking me to, that's really when the recovery took place.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, you got down to 70 pounds. It's a little of a different comparison now to weigh you because you're missing a leg, and so obviously that's gonna contribute to that. But I mean, are you at a healthier weight that you feel? I mean, you're obviously still, you're not obese by any stretch. You're still thin, but you're not at a point where you're like malnourished, very, very, very thin, right?
Right. I weigh about 100, 105, something like that right now. I'm trying
Hmm.
to add weight because when I was in the hospital, so the amputation of my leg just happened this past May.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, right at the end of Meatstock. And when I was in the hospital, just it really, I lost a lot of weight in the hospital. As happens sometimes. So I am trying to build up that muscle again and gain some weight.
Yeah, and like I said, you had obviously depleted your body so severely, getting down to 70 pounds. Um, that takes a long time to recover from, and then you get hit with sepsis on top of that, and
Right.
you just probably didn't have the reserve. And then obviously, if you don't have the, it's one of the osteomyelitis. For those who don't know, it's basically a bone infection. It's horrible. I mean, it is so hard to treat. I mean, IV antibiotics, surgeries, putting in sometimes cement beads, different,
It's the most painful thing that I've ever experienced. And people find it shocking that I'm happy that I got my leg amputated, but if they understood the amount of pain that I was in
mm-hmm.
with that infection, I mean, oh, it was unbearable.
Yeah, yeah. So currently, you've been doing a carnivore diet. You've been doing it for 8 years. What does that look like, and how has it evolved? Because initially you said you were under eating. So what did the under eating part look like for you, and then what does it look like today
Oh
in probably a
yeah.
more
Yeah.
appropriate
So when
form?
I jumped into carnivore, I thought I had to carnivore harder than everybody else and, OMAD must be better. One meal a day must be better and everything like that. So when I was under eating, I was only eating one meal a day and it was probably a pound or less of meat, maybe a steak or maybe some like a pulled pork or something like that. And I was still just trying to control. It was all about control. Nowadays, I eat 2 or 3 times a day. Sometimes even I have snacks. I eat when I'm hungry and I stop when I'm full. And I usually have. I've actually been on a chicken wing kick lately, so my body must be needing something in the chicken wings. So as soon as we get off here, I'm probably going to heat some up and have some of those because I worked out this morning. So I'm going to refuel with some chicken wings, and then later tonight I have some short ribs, some beef short ribs that are in the crock pot, and just pull those out and eat however much I want. And I do enjoy making like I'll use like Equip protein powder to make like, quote unquote carnivore-ish brownies or something like that. Um, as a little treat, or carnivore ice cream every now and then. I enjoy stuff like that, some creative recipes, but most of the time it's just meat and eggs and some butter.
I want to point out the fact you said, I was working out because, missing a leg, missing part of your foot, missing, parts of your hand, and still you're in there getting after it. And for those people that, oh, my knee hurts, I've got arthritis in my knee. I mean, there's a guy I interviewed for you, Rob Jones, double below above knee amputee,
Oh,
double
wow.
amputee, ran across, he ran like 30 marathons in 30 days, but rode his bike across USA, competed on the US Paralympic rowing team. I mean,
That's
it's
amazing.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's something that I have less sympathy for the people that make excuses, particularly when it's like, oh, I got this or that, whatever. And it's just like, you got people. And so good on you for doing that. And that's going to inspire people. It inspires me, quite honestly, when I'm sitting there complaining about, oh, I'm a little tired. I just got out of the gym. I worked out early this morning. I was doing a bunch of power cleans and jumping and some of this stuff. But so let me ask you about, because, from the I don't know who treats, maybe psychiatrists or whoever's in charge of eating disorder units, to, any of the people that have dealt with your various health issues, sepsis and so on and so forth, osteomyelitis. How much were those folks concerned with nutrition, as in, like, obviously when you're talking about anorexia, the concern is, let's get you some calories, right? We want to make sure
Mhm.
you get some nutrition. But as far as the makeup, the nutrition, the quality of the nutrition, what was the gist you got? Was it either none, or was it just, hey, you need to eat just the food pyramid, or what was the story on that?
Oh yeah, like I was referring earlier. So I had different experiences with the anorexia treatment, and then later on the amputation. But in terms of the eating disorder facility, it was all about, you know, eat everything. If you can't eat donuts and cakes and be okay with that and include everything in your diet, then you're not fully healed. If you exclude anything from your diet for reasons other than, you're allergic to it, or whatever, then you still have a problem. Like there's a problem with you. You're broken somehow if you can't include everything. Um, and it just makes you feel like crap. Makes you feel like you're a problem. There's something wrong. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Like I'm the problem. And but the nutritionists there definitely were all about all foods fit, everything in moderation, and it was very carbohydrate dense meals, and they always included a dessert, and there was always a quote unquote challenge meal once a week, so something that would be particularly difficult for people with eating disorders, so something like fast food, or just think of the worst possible thing nutrition standpoint. One of the challenges one week was like three or four, like Twinkies or something like that. You have to get over your fear of these foods, and you can't have any quote unquote fear foods. And so yeah, it was all about, if you can't do everything in moderation, then you are a broken human being and something is wrong with you.
Yeah, it's, if eating Twinkies. I'm not afraid of these foods, but I don't have a desire to eat them, and I don't think they're good for me. So why would I want to eat them? It's just like, do
Exactly.
you have a fear of
Exactly.
hitting yourself in the head with a hammer? Yeah, I guess kind of. I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of, yeah. It always amazes me. Gosh, I've interviewed a number of folks, particularly in these anorexia treatment centers, these inpatient facilities, and I just think they completely, must have it backwards, because just and you probably are aware of this, but the success rate with those types of interventions is not very good. It's quite
Oh, the
low, actually.
recidivism rate is extremely high. I mean, I've been keeping up with friends that I made in these eating disorder treatment facilities, and so many of them have returned three, four times um, to these places. It's a revolving door, and I hate to say it, but there's money to be made there.
yeah. These treatment facilities are profit centers. I mean, they make money for
Hmm.
sure, and it's well, that's a whole larger, broader context about
It's a
the medical
different,
system in
yeah, it's a big
general.
kettle
Where
of fish. I will
yeah, for
say
sure.
though, Dr. Baker, I had a very different experience when I received the amputation. When I was in the hospital, there, the surgeon actually, he said, make sure you eat a high protein diet. I said, well, that's not going to be a problem. And while I was in the hospital, I said, I only want meat and eggs. And they accommodated my request. They brought me, plain burger patties with cheese on them. They made me scrambled eggs, sausages, bacon. I mean, and they were very accommodating to my diet. And I encourage people, if you or a loved one is going through a hospital stay, don't accept the crap that they give you. Fight for yourself, advocate for yourself, make sure that you're taking care of yourself while you're in there because you can't recover properly if you don't get the right nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I mean, I think some physicians are coming around a little bit, and I think probably some more surgeons than others. It's kind of interesting. My particular spiel, orthopedics, there's quite a few orthopedists that are kind of less bought into I don't know, the narrative, I suppose, in many ways. So are you, at this point, are you basically, you think you're out of the woods? I mean, osteomyelitis is gone. Obviously, they've done an amputation, presumably at a high enough level to where, they've cleared that. Your wounds are healed fine. Um, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
assume
mean
you
it
have,
is a recent, like the below the leg amputation is recent. It's from May, so I'm still getting back on my feet, literally, as it were, and just learning to drive again, learning to walk again. I'm not ready to run again. Those kind of things. I'm still kind of easing back into the swing of life. I'm going to return to work at the end of this month. I work for Walmart in the back, so I'm my job is to lift heavy things and walk around and be on the docks. So that's going to be something that I'm making sure that my body is strong enough that I ease into things. But yeah, I'm extremely grateful for my recovery has been fantastic. But I still am recovering in terms of the amputation.
yeah. So, I mean, are you, 'cause a lot of time you have to wait for the stump to fully shrink to get a permanent prosthetic. Are you still at that point? Do you have your prosthetic?
I do. I have my first prosthetic, but I still go in every week to get it adjusted by my prosthetist. I guess that's the word. He does a great job, but there are changes that need to be made every week because of, like you said, I have to wear that stump shrinker on my leg,
Hmm.
and make sure that I think I will be receiving another prosthetic after this one. I think this one I believe is temporary, but um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And so, what do you have around you for support? And you'd mentioned you had ex-husband. I mean, do you have family around you? Have seen your transition? I mean, obviously, your father's is your father still in the picture? A
Oh gosh.
cardiologist?
Yeah. My family, they love me very much, but they are very opposed to carnivore. They believe it is an eating disorder. They believe that it is equivalent to anorexia. So they are not supportive of me, my parents. I do have four siblings that are very supportive. And they're adults as well, so they come to visit and everything like that. But I'm the only person in my family that lives here in Greenville. But I do have friends here in the area. I see a therapist who's a specialist in eating disorders, and just to make sure that I'm covering my bases and just talking things out with him is very helpful. But yeah, I have friends, coworkers, fantastic neighbors. I do have a good support system, but unfortunately, my family, my parents aren't part of that, and that's been difficult for me because my mom is also a doctor actually, so I send them research articles all the time, information. and they've seen that I'm doing well and doing better, but again, they have been bought and paid for by the medical establishment, unfortunately. And my dad is set to retire this fall, so I'm hoping once he retires and maybe steps back from his work, that maybe he'll be able to kind of evaluate better the situation. But yeah, in terms of that, it's a mixed bag.
Let me ask you, because you work at Walmart. You said Walmart, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your experience there like? I mean, is it Walmart? Because Walmart typically most of them sell food, correct? Or not all of them.
Oh, yes. So actually, I work in the online grocery pickup department. So my job is to prepare people's orders for, if you order online through Walmart, you can order for to go pick it up at the store or get it delivered to your home. And oh Lord, Dr. Baker, I see all kinds of things in people's buggies, and I just want to take it out of the buggy and throw it away, but of course I can't. But people buying gallons of canola oil, and it just I see a lot coming through there.
Yeah, I'm when I go to like Costco and I'll see these giant containers of oils, and I'm just amazed that I guess there's people that still buy the heck out of that stuff, and there's people that I adamantly believe that is um, you know, that is
The
the best
healthy
thing
way to
for
go.
them.
Well,
Yeah,
they
healthy
see,
to
vegetable oil. Oh, it must be good for you, And I mean, even I used to think that way like 10 years ago. I was like, oh, okay, well, vegetable oil, it must come from vegetables. It must be a natural thing. But people just don't understand where that stuff comes from. And once I learned, oh man, once I went down that rabbit hole, I was done. Like there is so much to learn that we just aren't aware of and exposed to. And I think a lot of people just, I'm not saying this in a rude way, they're just ignorant. They just don't have the information. And perhaps if they did, they would make changes.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so you said, obviously still at work, you're getting your feet, getting your legs back under you, so to speak, in a sort of a interesting way. Um, Plans for the future. I mean, obviously, I don't know how much you share your story. I mean, obviously, you have your career, at working, but do you do anything outside of that? Are you working with other women struggling with anorexia or any of those other things? Has that been something you had an interest in?
I would really love to do that. I have set up a blog, and I call myself on Instagram Peg Leg Carnivore. And I set up a blog that just tells my complete story with pictures and everything. It's just peglegcarnivore.com. I want my story to be out there because I do want people to know that there is freedom from anorexia. I mean, anorexia is like a prison that you make for yourself. Like you set all these rules about food and exercise and force yourself to adhere to them uh, almost religiously. And I just want women, men, everybody to know that freedom can be possible. It can be yours. So I have set up that blog. I also raise quail on the side, so that's kind of like my little side hustle. So it's amazing. It's so much fun to go outside. I've been doing that for about maybe 5 years or so. But I just love being able to go outside, collect eggs in the morning, and then I also process the birds. So I eat the birds and the eggs, and I sell the eggs, and that's a fun thing for me. But I just want to be open to living my best life, sharing my story, and whatever God has in store for me, I know He'll make it obvious what I'm supposed to do with my story and with my life.
That's certainly a good attitude to have for sure. Um, Anything else you want to share that we haven't discussed that you think is relevant, given your history and what you've gone through?
Oh gosh, I think we've done a really good job covering everything. But I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share it. And, if anybody wants to talk to me, I'm very open to that. In fact, I tend to overshare. So, um, but yeah, no, I just thank you for everything that you do. And ladies, eat more. You're probably not eating enough. that if I can impart one thing to ladies in particular, um, eat more, get stronger.
Well, yeah, that's not bad advice. And it, obviously I think to get stronger is probably my major favorite one. Well, thank you for doing this, Marion. Appreciate it. And you have a wonderful rest of your day. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. God bless.